This is Sports Charlotte, the podcast about sports in Charlotte. My name is Herb White. I'm editor in chief at the Charlotte Post. It is October 9, 2025. And with me, as per usual, is Cameron Williams, who's a staff reporter at the Post. And it's no small thing that it's a busy time of the year. And it's gotten busier because basketball is immediately upon us. And the Atlantic Coast Conference basketball schools and players and coaches got together in Charlotte this week to talk hoops, and much was shared, much is expected.
Yes. I guess I'll tee off now.
Yes, go right ahead.
Yeah, so look, there's 5 Carolina-based schools in the ACC. Several of them had really good seasons last year, others not so much. But when you look at it top to bottom, your front runners probably going to be Duke again. They had a really solid outing last season. 30, I got the record somewhere. 35. Okay, I was going to say 34-4. 35-4. 19-1 in the ACC, and even with those solid records, by the Blue Devils standards, they fell short. Got to the Final Four, had an ACC title to boast as well, but fell to Houston in the Final Four game. It was kind of eye-opening just to hear Coach Shire and how he's not really focused on last season's shortcomings. He's shifted mindsets to, because when he first got to Duke, he was very focused on like, okay, what's going to work this year? How do I translate it to next season? And one thing you realize is just because things worked last year doesn't necessarily it's going to work with next year's team. So this summer has been there has been a big emphasis on just kind of bonding, getting the guys close, because if you can do all that preliminary type stuff and team building in the off season, it's going to make for a much smoother sailing come time for the actual season to start. Key returners: Isaiah Evans, North Mech kid. He's by many people's prognostications and predictions, he's probably going to be first team All ACC. He's really kick and shoot the net off a rim. Everybody knows that, but I'm ready to see him take the next step in his game and transcend to where he can not only be a spot up shooter, but really dribble drive, create his own shot, get to the rim. You saw flashes of that last year, had a couple, breakaway layups, dunks, but most of the times when Evans was touching the ball, it was a flamethrower from range. Obviously, departures of guys like Cooper Flagg, Con Knipple, and Sion James. Those two in particular are now Charlotte Hornets. But you also lost center Kamal Malawach and guard Tyrese Proctor. So when you lose your entire starting 5, there's got to be some people to come in and help that. Duke's got the number 1 recruiting class. We say that a lot. People in college hoops say that a lot because they're good at what they do. They recruit well. Bring in 3 5-star players. Cameron Boozer, yes, son of former Duke great and championship winner Carlos Boozer. His twin brother, 4-star Caden, Nicholas Hamina, and Dame Sarr. I was actually listening to a video from John Rothenstein, and he went to one of Duke's practices and said that Dame Sarr could, quite frankly, be one of the top 2 to top 3 best players on this team. Kid from Barcelona. So he's actually already a pro, sort of, kind of. I mean, he played in
Europe, yeah.
their professional leagues over there. And so, look, it's a team that is well constructed of incoming freshmen and returners, like I've already mentioned Evans, but Patrick Gongba, he was the backup center that, quite frankly, in my opinion, at times was more serviceable than Malawach. Malawach, great defender, but offensively, Gongba has really, for lack of better terms, dazzled me a little bit more. Malawach was the lob guy. You could lob it up to him, he'd dunk it. But as far as footwork, as far as I know former Charlotte Post Publishing Company employee Alex Bass used to say, pivot prowess.
Mm.
That's one thing that I think Ongwa's really got. But what's going to quantify success for Duke this year? I want to get your take on that. Is it to the point now where Shire's okay? Look, you got 2 ACC titles, an Elite Eight, a Final Four. Is it championship or bust?
How long has he been on the job?
Let's see, 22, 23.
Okay, so this is his 4th season.
Mm-hmm.
Compare that to Mike Krzyzewski.
Well,
Krzyzewski wasn't sniffing it in his 4th year. So Shire's actually ahead of the curve.
oh, I mean,
So
it helps to be set up by a guy like Coach K, though, to kind of have that very stable foundation, I guess.
well, if you're using that as the metric, then I guess you would have some folks who are Duke fans saying, well, where's our championship, John? And if you use the lens of history, it's like, Duke's got runway to go. I guess it all depends on which camp you fall into. But because we live in a society that is looking for instant gratification, in some dark corner somewhere, dude might be on watch in terms of get it done, or there'll be some clapping back against.
Well, he just got a 6-year contract extension, so I don't think he's necessarily on watch.
Well, at least the university is a firm believer in what he's doing, and I am too. So, to me, another Final Four would be great. If you could advance to the title game, that's even better. If you win it, well, I guess he becomes a legend all in 4 years' time. You know, so I mean, that's kind of like the way that I like what he's doing. And yeah, we have seen folks succeed legends and be abject failures.
Yeah.
The fact that he hasn't been and is carving his own path, I think that says volumes for Jon Scheyer. So I don't want to hear any slander about is dude supposed to be winning us a championship right now or whatever. It's like he's already exceeded expectations at most programs where you have a successor to a sports titan. I mean, and Mike Krzyzewski's college basketball, and some would say just basketball period. He's a titan of the sport, and he's done very well. Hey, what has other blue blood programs done in recent years with coaches who are stepping in for legendary figures? I mean, some would even argue UCLA is still looking for the second coming of John Wooden.
UCLA hasn't been good in a while.
Well, that's the point.
Yeah.
Kentucky.
Mark Pope's done a solid job with them.
But
okay, I mean, I see your point, but I mean, what last year was Pope's first year? I think.
Well, it's a blue blood program, and the expectation didn't win the SEC, didn't get to the Final Four.
Well, the SEC was a freaking gauntlet last year.
But the point remains: you're Kentucky, and when you are a basketball fan in Kentucky, Alabama shouldn't be outdoing you. I'm just saying.
Alabama was really good too.
And if you want even more proof, you could just as easily look a little ways across from Durham to Chapel Hill and see all the grief Hubert Davis is catching at North Carolina. And he has a Final Four and a title game appearance.
Yeah.
And if folks want to put him out on a rail, like, lickety split.
Well, that's a good transition. And quite frankly, I think Davis gets criticism because he went to the Final Four after, the first year after taking over for Roy Williams. But it's like the analogy or the comparison that you like to use with Charlotte football. Will Healy comes in with Brad Lambert, the former coach's recruits, and has a very successful first year. Same could be said for Hubert Davis. Now, was Davis on staff with Williams? Yes. Did he help recruit some of those players? Yes. But you still have to understand that was Roy's team that Hubert just the development was already there is basically what I'm trying to get at. And so, yeah, they made a Final Four, they made a title game, did was up by 15 at halftime and found a way to lose that game. So
He'll never live that one down.
No, he won't. But then following that, he hasn't had a good run. They made the tournament last year by the graces of
Chinny Chin Chin.
Well, by the graces of Bubba Cunningham being on the NCAA board.
Well, okay.
But they make the tournament, and a lot of people are like, "Oh yeah, because they win that play-in game or whatever," and they're like, "I think Carolina's got a chance against Ole Miss." Nope.
Mm-hmm.
So they're out in the round of 64, but like with a lot of teams, rebuild. Carolina has done it more through the portal. Now they did bring in 5-star freshman Caleb Wilson. He's gonna be a good player. I've seen plenty of tape on Wilson. The hype is there, and it is true. But transfers Jaron Stevenson from Alabama, Henry Visar, center from Arizona, Jaden Young, Virginia Tech, Kyan Evans from Colorado State, and Jonathan Powell from West Virginia. All of those guys maybe minus Powell, but Kyan Evans, Visar, and Jaron Stevenson, all three of those guys for sure are going to have an impact on this Carolina team. The one thing Davis said at media week was, he tells players that are coming in, if you guys are going to play for me, we need to have a good connection. We need to know each other well. And so the only way he feels you do that, you spend a lot of time together in the offseason. Very similar to what Shire kind of alluded to with his program at Duke. You have to build that bond together. And so Hubert thinks they've done that, and they're expecting big things. You can't be Chapel Hill and not expect big things in basketball. Whether you live up to it or not, to be determined.
Yeah, and I don't know, if you're a Carolina fan, is Hubert Davis closer to Matt Doherty than Roy Williams or Bill Guthridge?
Okay, don't do that. Don't do him like that.
I mean, two of those three were very successful during their time at North Carolina. Guthridge was Guthridge. And Roy Williams, obviously, another titan of the sport. Matt Doherty, abject failure. So where does Davis fall in against those three? So we're not even talking about Dean Smith or Frank McGuire.
He would definitely be leaning towards more of the Doherty side of things if you're just judging him based on his first few seasons.
But he does have a Final Four. Doherty never even got close to that.
Okay. Are you going to rest on your laurels from your first year, or are you going to continue?
Never. Keep it moving.
I mean, you got guys like Shire who have made progress each year. Hubert Davis has made regression each year.
Good point.
So
closer to Doherty.
I would say so. And look, I'm going to be very straightforward and objective. I'm going to give them their fair shake. They do well in the portal. They do well recruiting. Let's just see some results. Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing, and that's the biggest thing Carolina fans themselves are going to want to see is, okay, you're bringing in all these guys, and that's fine and dandy, but you've done that before, and we've seen how that shakes out. How's it going to be different? And I think that's what they've got to prove.
Where are the results? And that, to me, the thing that really raises a concern in racing terms, it would be cause for a caution flag. They had double-digit losses last season.
Yeah.
Good title-winning teams usually don't do that.
No.
And so, to me, that would be the thing to look for. You want your team to 23-14 is fine if you're a mid-major. That's a really good season. That's a solid. But if you're a P4 blue blood basketball program, you need to cut those losses in half.
Yeah.
Or at the very least, no more than 10. If you're talking about 14, that's a lot of losing. Mm-hmm. And North Carolina has its work cut out for it. But boy, to be a fly on the wall in Chapel Hill these days, between Bill Belichick and basketball, man, oh man, there must be some gnashing of teeth, gouging of eyes, pulling of hair. Because it's like, you know what? We got concerns.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess as a kind of a transitioning point, you got a team like that who struggled, but you really can't say that any team struggled more than NC State.
Oh yeah.
You go from going to the Final Four, beating Duke along the way to get there in the Elite Eight, and now last season you're 12-19 and only managed 5 wins in the conference. Yeah, Kevin Keys was a nice guy, but he got the boot, and probably rightfully so. That's so tough. That is, as an athletics director, that has probably got to be one of the toughest calls you can possibly make. Is like, you go to the Final Four, the next year you're awful, but it's like, how do you quantify firing a guy who was in the Final Four less than a season ago?
Yeah. Chicken salad today, chicken feathers tomorrow.
I thought you were going somewhere else with that.
I know.
But at any rate, they were really bad. Kevin Keats got the old big boot, and they hired quite the coach. I don't know how much
rising star.
I don't know how much you know about Will Wade, but he is rather outspoken. He is rather in your face, kind of like, we're going to win this recruiting battle type deal. We're going to win games type. Not to get too far ahead of ourselves. Came from McNeese State.
Mm-hmm.
He's 42, which I did some research, and I'm 99.9% sure this is correct. But he is at 42. He's the third youngest coach in the ACC, just ahead of John Shire, who's 38, and Jai Lucas of Miami, who's 36. So he led McNeese State to the round of 32 in last year's tournament, beating another ACC foe in Clemson in the first round as one of those famous 12-5 upsets.
Mm-hmm.
And look, he was very grateful. He's like, we're excited to be here. We think we've put together a team that can be competitive, that can win games in the ACC and get back to the NCAA tournament. I mean, that's every coach's goal. You get to the tournament, you got a chance to win the championship. One key addition that I thought was, man, this is just good stuff. Center Vin Allen Lubin. Tar Heel fans will remember he was their starting center a season ago, and Will Wade obviously pitched something really nice to him to get him to come to NC State, because usually you don't see many people transfer to an arch rival.
Yeah.
The only thing that would have been more shocking or worse would have been someone from Duke going to North Carolina or North Carolina to Duke. But no, he went from North Carolina to NC State, and it's like, what? But look, one thing Lubin told us in the breakout session was that he liked how transparent Will Wade is. He's like, he's not going to sugarcoat things. He's not going to try to dazzle you with his charisma or anything. He's straightforward. He's a straight shooter, and he thinks that both. Lubin thinks both he and Wade have untapped potential. He's like, you can see the previous stops I was at. I don't think they were helping me fulfill my full potential, and so he thinks NC State gives him the best shot to do that.
Well, for his sake, I hope that's true, because he is obviously well traveled. So,
Yeah.
but that's modern college sports anyway. If you don't get the development or money that you like, go someplace else that will.
Yeah. But I mean, what do you think about transferring to a rival? To me, that is just like the ultimate stab in the back you can do as a player. I mean, look, Lubin I've talked with him now 2 or 3 times. He's a great guy. I don't think he did this with a malicious intent.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was, everything is a business decision when in the college athletics landscape now. So I understand that, and you want to be able to fulfill your potential, but this is just different.
Nothing personal. And
you can say that, but man,
everybody's a mercenary in sports these days. In this country, it's about, what can you do for me? And if you can't do it, I will find somebody else who can, even if it's just a few miles down the road. And look, that loyalty thing is great if you're an alum. You can't make that sustainable if you're an athlete. If your mission in life is to get to the professional ranks, you need to be able to get something on video that will get people to talking about, this dude or Dudette may be a really good pro, and we want to be able to add him or her to our roster somehow, whether it's through the draft or whatever. So, like I said, nothing personal. Kids are looking out for themselves. They're empowered to do it. They're going to do it. And rivalry is nothing but another word in today's landscape.
Yeah, but I'm going to go on record now and saying I think there's going to be some technical fouls in the UNC-NC State matchups next year, buddy.
Because the athletes themselves, they understand. It's like, well, hey, probably would have done the same thing myself if I was similarly situated.
Yeah, maybe so, but
you can best believe alums and fans are going to ride hard.
If you're Hubert Davis, though, that can't sit well with you.
I think coaches understand that too. Alumni and fans won't, because it's very tribal. That's my tribe. You toss my tribe overboard to join a rival tribe. Yeah, they're going to get after it. But
they brought in a center at Carolina and Visar. And I mean, he's going to be a good player, but you had Lubin sitting right there. A great defender, rebounds the ball well. I don't understand why you want to. Now, I don't know the order in which all this happened. I don't know if Lubin left first and then they brought Visar in, or if they were already talking with Visar and Lubin was like, okay, now I'm getting pushed on the back burner, adios. If I knew the order in which that happened, it would probably shed a little bit of light on which side was more at fault.
Or maybe there really isn't fault to be laid.
Yeah,
it is just a matter of, well, if you are making out a roster and you think you can do better, coaches certainly have the option to just push folks out. And that door swings both ways now. And athletes are like, well, you know what? That's not making it for me. So, bye.
Yeah.
And I think all will be well, except for when they get together and the alums of the rival school will let him have it.
Oh, yeah. That you can for sure bet the bank on that.
Mm-hmm.
But 2 more schools to chat about. Winston-Salem, the good old Wake Forest Demon Deacons.
Yep. Kind of like the forgotten school in that Big Four.
Kind of. I mean,
mm-hmm.
They had a much better season last year, and quite frankly, they had a better season than Carolina, other than the fact Carolina beat them in the quarterfinals of the ACC tournament. 21-11, 13-7. Similar record to North Carolina, or the same record in the ACC. But they were kind of on that bubble of making last year's NCAA tournament, but that quarterfinal loss kind of did it in, and as I put in this story, it was kind of the pin in the balloon for any hopes that Coach Steve Forbes and his staff had of going to the tournament. Now, Forbes entering his 6th season. He has a career coaching record of 390-168. So he's not, by any stretch of the means, a bad coach. Most programs would love to have a coach like that. But when you have a program like Wake Forest that has a tradition of winning, I mean, you think about the big names of the Randolph Childers, obviously Tim Duncan. You want to, as an alum and as a fan, you see
Chris
Paul. You see these teams, and you're like, okay, when are we going to get back to national prominence?
It's been a while for Wake.
It has.
Rodney Rogers too. So but that's why I brought up that Wake is kind of like that forgotten school in the Big Four. North Carolina and Duke suck up so much oxygen, and North Carolina State obviously is fairly fresh to the Final Four. Wake Forest is kind of like, it's just doing its thing over there, and nobody is really paying attention. But I think the ACC is a much more interesting conference when a school like Wake Forest makes an impact.
I think it's much more. I think it's just better in general when all the Triangle schools are having good years. I mean, there were times, growing up as a kid, just living in ACC country where, I remember Duke, North Carolina, Wake Forest, and NC State all vying for an ACC championship.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you're talking about 10, 15 years removed from things like that. And now you're, like you mentioned, it's very two-headed with, Duke and Chapel Hill. And as of the last 2 to 3 seasons, it's really only been one, that being Duke. But I think Wake is in a position to where they could have a really solid year. I know I wrote about one key returner is going to be Salisbury High alum, Juke Harris. I remember watching this kid in high school. This man can ball. He's a 6'7" guard, and he's got the ball handling skills of a point guard, but he can also shoot really well. Didn't shoot that great a season ago, but one thing Forbes said is in practice, which we'll get to that, he's shooting like 47% from 3-point range. Now, once game times come around, things may get a little tighter, but I've seen him shoot really well. Now, the college game's a lot more physical. It's a lot different, but I think this team could probably go as far as Harris can take them.
Yeah.
He's only a sophomore, but I think he is going to be one of, if not the most impactful players for the Demon Deacons.
That's good to know. We'll see if they can break in on the relevance column, because the ACC, you've got 17 schools, something like that. It's coast to coast. It's easy to get
all
lost.
Coast Conference now.
Yeah, it's easy to get lost, and so Wake needs to do something to come on in out of the cold.
Yeah, and then just south of the border, and no, we're not talking about Mexico. The North-South Carolina border.
Mm-hmm.
The Clemson Tigers, 27-7 a season ago, really performed by a football school standards really well in basketball. 18-2 in the ACC, finished tied for second, but lost the tiebreaker with Louisville, so they ended up getting the 3 seed in the tournament. It all shaked out. The Tigers did meet up with the Cardinals in the ACC semifinal, to which Louisville was victorious in that, but the Tigers are going to be young this year. They do have 2 key seniors returning, R.J. Godfrey, Dylan Hunter. But overall, it's going to be kind of a young, constructed roster. Handful of freshmen are going to be called upon to make impacts. But Coach Brad Brownell said he's very excited to see where this team can get. Any young team is going to have a few bumps and bruises along the way early on, but he's confident that, by conference time, this team could be pretty well oiled and ready to make another run for an ACC crown.
Yeah, Clemson is always an interesting basketball program. It's like trying to be the little engine that could. And again, when you're talking about ACC basketball, Clemson is not the one that you think of first, maybe not even fourth. And for Clemson, the way to get on people's lips is to whoop up on the standard bearers. And so that means taking out those North Carolina schools.
Mm-hmm.
And given that, I think they may be outside of their youth. Physically, they should have a pretty good little squad there this year. And what that will look like, can't wait to see what it comes down to. But they obviously had a good season last year, but that's not going to help them this time around. And so how good is that roster construction? And can it go out and compete at the highest level when you're talking about the Louisvilles and the Dukes and those folks? And obviously Wake Forest is going to be hungry. North Carolina needs to do something. And so there's a lot of great storylines in the ACC this season.
There is. I think the biggest thing for the ACC, and it makes national headlines all the time, is when is the ACC going to be the ACC of old? I think losing Maryland hurt. I mean, Maryland...
It hasn't done Maryland any favors either, moving over to the Big Ten.
That's true. But I just think, Florida State hadn't been really good in a while. I know Leonard Hamilton, he's no longer there, but it's been a rough stretch of, I'd say, 3 to 4, maybe 5 years for the ACC just as a whole. Used to, the ACC would have the most, if not the second most, teams in the NCAA tournament
Mm-hmm.
all the time. I mean, I remember years. I mean, even when Syracuse joined and Louisville joined, you had Louisville, Syracuse, Duke, North Carolina. I
Big
mean,
names.
always making the tournament. And now, when you've got teams like North Carolina who are struggling to make the tournament, that does not bode well for the conference as a
And
whole.
Syracuse won't even be heard from.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, yeah. Syracuse is not the Big East Syracuse that a lot of us remember.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you also got the drama behind teams wanting to go to the SEC, and I mean, like North Carolina, for example. You go to the SEC, is the way the SEC was in basketball last year, you would have been even more so less competitive than you were in the ACC.
Would have been stuck with Vanderbilt probably.
Yeah, but I mean, then you talk about football. I mean, Lord, you don't have a prayer in the ACC. You're not going to have a prayer in the SEC in football either.
Yeah, you
So
get dog walked by Vanderbilt.
sometimes I think college teams and administration needs to understand that grass ain't always greener on the other side.
But the dollars are.
Well,
And that's the point.
They're not greener. They're just a lot more of them.
Well, yeah, that it will help you sleep at night. Let's put it like that.
But people have to understand basketball is never going to drive revenue the way football is. It's not. And so if people are just going to make business decisions, they're going to hurt their athletic programs. Because I use the example with Carolina, but Florida State, for example, unless their football team even gets better than what it is now, they're not going to be super competitive in the SEC. And heavens knows their basketball is not going to be competitive. You talk about Clemson, they've had their bumps and bruises with football. That's the one team that I think could get back to being competitive in a league like the SEC, but basketball,
not so much.
Maybe top third, but maybe middle of the pack. So sometimes I think you have to do what's best for the programs. You're in a basketball conference. Even the teams or the schools that consider themselves football schools, be content. I mean, just be content. But as we round out this potty, because it is getting a little girthy, who do you think wins the ACC and why?
Well, it's really easy to say Duke and just let that be the end of it. But I'm going to throw a curveball. And it's not much of a curveball. Maybe it's a slider. Louisville.
No, I should have went first. That was going to be who I was going to say. I think Louisville, they returned enough pieces and they brought in a few guys here and there. And look, Pat Kelsey, that man can coach.
That's the X factor. The coach is the one who stirs the drink over there. And I just think that Louisville has enough of everything to give Duke all the headache it can stand.
Maybe. I mean, Duke did beat him without Cooper Flagg last year.
Well,
and Cooper Flagg's a 28-8 or 28-6 kind of guy. I don't know. Look, I mean, I was going to say Louisville too, so I'm just going to say. But I think Duke, they've got enough. They don't have a Cooper Flagg, but look, Cameron Boozer, that kid is nice. If they can get enough contributing points, rebounds, assists from guys like Evans, guys like Gongba, newcomer Dame Sarr, their talent is just they're top to bottom. That is one thing that I'll say about Shire that I like that he does better than Coach K. Coach K would have really solid rosters, but they would be so top heavy. I mean, you had Zion Williamson and RJ Barrett, and it's like, wow, everything they do. They dazzle, and rightfully so. They're 1 and 2 in the country. But the fall off after that, Coach K never had deep teams. And I think in today's era, you need deep teams. Even when they won the championship in 2015, you had guys like Jahlil Okafor and Tyus Jones and Justice Winslow. You had the big three. But then you had just kind of splashes of complimentary guys like, the Emil Jeffersons, the Matt Jones. And it's like this year's team could compare to last year's of just how much depth they have. Do I think they'll send their entire starting five to the league? Probably not. But I think they've got the depth to be another formidable force, win 32, 33 plus games, and get to another Final Four. championships are going to be hard to win. I mean, Purdue's going to be solid. Houston's going to be solid. Florida, again, is going to be really solid. So, well, I mean, winning a championship's hard in any sport, but you've got all these teams that are really solid in basketball now. But I think Duke's roster composition puts themselves in a good spot.
That is something that I will agree with. But I still like Louisville.
I mean, I like Louisville too, and anybody can beat anybody on any given day, but I just think roster composition is so huge. And look, I mean, if Flag would have played in last year's ACC final, it would have probably been even worse than it was. So, how good has Louisville gotten by retaining players, and how much of a fall off are we going to see from Duke losing Flag and Knipple and James and Proctor and Malawach? That's what it's going to be all about.
Mm-hmm.
But
yep, sustainability.
To put a bow on it, unfortunately, we both agreed we think Louisville could be the ACC champ. I'm going to say it's either going to be Duke or Louisville. For sure. I mean, I don't see either.
One of those two.
I don't see Clemson pushing for it. I don't really see Wake pushing for it. And I mean, unless Carolina and Hubert Davis really shock some people, I think they're going to be 4th or 5th again. So I think it's a two-team race. Unfortunately, for national prominence, that's never a good thing for the conference, but it's reality.
Yep, absolutely. And so we appreciate you sticking around for the podcast. Do us a favor, though. Go to our website, thecharlottepost.com, and become a donor, a subscriber, or even better, well, almost better, is to become a subscriber to our sports newsletter. It comes out every Thursday, so it's out today. I curate stories that we've been working on for the past week, and it's free for you to become a subscriber to the newsletter. And by all means, subscribe to our work. If you're watching the podcast on YouTube, subscribe to YouTube. Become a subscriber to the publication, either in print, if you're old school and you like the feel of newsprint, or if you're into digital, there's a digital version of the publication as well. Regardless, we appreciate your support, because without your support, we wouldn't be here. So we need you to keep us going. So for everybody at the office here in beautiful Derrida, that's Cam, I'm Herb. Thanks for watching and listening.